It's pretty common to hear that in order for someone to attain a vision, they must have a strong desire, some ambition they wish to achieve, or a combination of the two. Those who have obtained visions often receive them during a significant crisis, and some even on the verge of death, but this isn't always the case. Most of these examples, though, are taken from experiences of humans. But what if there's a different way for you to get a vision? And what if I told you that the kitsune Yae Miko has actually mentioned this other method? Before we get into that, however, if you want to see more Genshin Impact content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Yae Miko is pretty old. You didn't hear that from me, but her age belies an ancient knowledge and wisdom as she has been around for quite some time. Yae Miko isn't one to talk about her past, however, and most of her lore is difficult to discern, as when asked, she either outright lies about it or just makes things up most of the time. But during the Inazuma storyline, her knowledge proves to be an extremely valuable resource. She knew about the plane of euthymia and how to breach it. She knew how to transport the traveler to the place where Raiden A and Raiden Shogun were fighting, and she knows a lot about the yokai and their traditions, magic, and abilities. These are rather obscure knowledge, given most that we meet in Inazuma or even Tevat barely know these things at all. What's interesting is that tucked away in one of her Ascension voice lines is the implication that there may be other ways of obtaining a vision. In most character lore, once you unlock it, it tells the story of how they receive their visions and their experiences or past. In Yae Miko's case, she seems to just distract you with random and made up stories. This does make me wonder, however, whether she mixes truth with lies in order to hide away truth in plain sight. Getting back on topic, what exactly is this other method that she's mentioned? In her Ascension voice line, Yae Miko goes through the ranks one can achieve as they ascend as a priestess. The first two ranks of Chokai and Sekai seem straightforward enough, and just seem to revolve around the daily activities a shrine maiden is already expected to carry out, as well as the knowledge they are supposed to have befitting such positions. But in the third rank, Meikai, is where things get a little bit more interesting. Yae Miko states that in order to reach this level, one must be able to decipher the workings of the world, transcend its limitations, and fathom all phenomena held within. By being able to do so, the individual is highly likely to receive a vision and is granted an extremely long life. It implies two very important things. The first is that the true nature of the world may be obscure to those who just examine it at the surface level. And the second is that understanding or figuring out the secret allows you to gain a vision. Now, it's unclear whether she's making this shit up. Honestly, it's not surprising at all if she did. Maybe she's just trying to entice those who wish for power or control to be shrine maidens. Or maybe she's just bored. But I suspect there is some truth to this, as her vision lore is quite clearly a lie, so perhaps this is how she truly gained her vision. Besides that, in Genshin Impact, a lot of the core concepts take inspiration from Gnosticism. The idea that gaining an understanding of the world leads to higher enlightenment may hold some truth here. In Gnosticism, the real world is seen as flawed, and to gain salvation, one has to attain the true knowledge. Perhaps this is also true in Tevat, as gaining a truer understanding of the world opens up avenues for ascension. On top of this, the idea of learning the truth of the world has been a repeating theme in the story so far. The infamous alchemist Goal said this very thing to Albedo, the traveler's sibling says it as well, the Doctor and Scaramouche seem to be aware of the fakeness of the world, and in the latest lore, we learn that the Irminsul memories can be seemingly altered. The truth and the lies of the world seem to be growing as a plot point, and perhaps Yae Miko is aware of this as well, and hints at the relationship between the truth and visions. What this truth actually is remains unclear, and whether the truth of the world is really just understanding its nature or something else completely, we don't yet know. So if we take this to be the truth, and learning of the inner workings of Tevat can grant you access to a vision, do we have any examples of this? Well, as far as I can recall, and do correct me in the comments if I miss something out, most vision receivers get theirs through a combination of strong desires or ambitions. There are weird outliers, of course, like Sucrose and Sino, but they are far from meeting the criteria spelled out here. Perhaps only Lisa fits this method so far, but even then, she manifested her vision out of a desire to receive knowledge, rather than figuring it out and then receiving one. My first guess as to explaining this would be this might be something unique to non-human races. Perhaps the yokai and by extension adepti have a different set of criteria to humans when it comes to gaining the favor of Celestia. Or maybe there are just several other ways of ascending that we just aren't aware of. Another potential explanation is that it's specific to the shrine maidens in Inazuma. We do know that the Sakura tree was planted with the help of Ishtaroth, the god of time and aspect of the primordial being. If you don't know who that is, maybe I'll make a video on that someday. But Ishtaroth, suffice to say, may understand the inner workings of the world, seeing as she largely helped build it. So perhaps this alternative path was knowledge passed down among the priestesses of the shrine and unique only to them, and perhaps is why we have very little to no evidence of anyone receiving a vision this way. The problem with this idea is that if knowledge can truly lead one to gain elemental control via vision, why have we not seen Kenria mention this? At its height, Kenria was likely an exceptionally advanced civilization, so it would stand to reason they would likely have a better understanding of the true nature of Tevat the most. But we have yet to hear them achieving such results. In any case, Yae Miko seems to imply that there is another way to ascend, and perhaps there are actually several other routes that Celestia has purposefully obscured. As interesting as this possibility is, there is still much we don't know about Celestia and the visions. Perhaps most of what I mentioned here is just coincidence, and maybe Yae Miko is really just making things up. But I do find the idea of gaining visions through knowledge a rather interesting prospect, as it creates a lot more interesting questions. Like why we haven't heard Kenria, arguably a very advanced nation, achieve elemental mastery this way, and is this true knowledge at all related to the forbidden knowledge that has recently been surfacing in the story? But these are questions for another day, and that marks the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, do consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. As usual, have a nice day.